Okay. Hi. Good morning, everybody. I could give it a try, of course. So after my liver flush, and after seeing the liver stones that appeared, I was wondering deeply about and frequently about the stones that have been there all these years. So made me think. First, I'm 74. Those stones have been there for how long? I've never had a liver cleanse before. And now I've got my first cleanse in my entire life, and there's these stones that appear, which makes me think, well, if that's the case, those stones have been in there for how long? And have they been compromising my liver to the extent that my heart has been pumping a lot more, a little bit more furiously all these years to compensate for the blockage that those liver stones have provided in my liver? So it makes me think, I don't know how many channels, how many tubes, how many ducts there are in the liver, that they're all being plugged, or there's just billions of them. So I get the impression that the blood that's flowing through there all the time is not flowing through as efficiently as it could be if those stones weren't there. Because those stones are there, it would be a whole lot more efficient if there were no stones, which made me just wonder what's been going on all these years, and to what extent has my that system been compromised, if at all. What's going on down there?
Yes, it is quite mysterious, really. Yeah, and I mean, and maybe what's even more the miracle is like how well you're doing after all these years with potentially a lot more stones than that lodged in the liver, you know? What you got was your first batch, you know? It's kind of like the first batch is like it's like if you loading a grocery bag or something, you know, you're like filling the grocery bag and then it's like you can't really reach in. If it's like a completely full grocery bag, there's only one outlet kind of, right? The top of the bag. And so when you when you unload the bag, you have to take from the top first. You have to take out the top thing. So it's actually they're like the last things you put in, but they're the first things you're gonna take out. You can't really just reach in and get like the first things you put in the bag.
So I think part of what Sienna is saying is we don't actually know at this time. We don't really have a way to know how old. When we do a liver flush, we don't know how old the stones are. Some people have theories based on the color of the stone that there may have some relationship there to how old the stone is. But if we, as long as if we're living in such a way that our liver is functioning at anything less than full capacity, there's a likelihood that to some extent we are actually continually making liver stones. And the ones that are going to come out first are actually the newest ones. So they may, I mean, we would like to hope that our liver is mostly functioning well. And we would like to hope that maybe our liver isn't making a lot of stones. But it is possible that the stones we see on, say, our first liver flush, they could be a month old, they could be 6 months old, they could be a year or two old, but they could be relatively recent. And the likelihood is good because most people will need to flush numerous times before they're showing signs that their liver is clear. There's a good likelihood that we're not actually going to get to the truly old stones for many flushes. So the older stones are most likely deeper inside. Now, something I wanted to add, I know it's a little bit, it's kind of a lot, but sometimes I personally, I go out into the world and I look at the people that I briefly worked. This is kind of a funny anecdote. I briefly worked at a gas station. I live in rural North Carolina, and the customers that I would see at the gas station, sometimes I honestly thought, I have absolutely no idea how this person is walking around, because it is crazy what the human body can sustain and continue to be alive. I mean, I literally saw people who appeared to be living on alcohol, cigarettes, and energy drinks, and we're somehow still kind of okay. I mean, and I say that in a relative way because they were, from my perspective, pretty obviously not okay. But it takes a lot for the body to actually get to organ failure. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, a mixed bag, because on one hand, that means we can go for a really long time and not be totally taken down. But on the other hand, it's kind of a miracle because people stay alive through a whole lot. So even someone who can seem relatively healthy and by common standards seem quite healthy indeed may still have liver stones. There may be some blockage in the flow of the liver, but I encourage you all, and if I knew how to do it easily, I would show you, to look up a picture on Google of a liver that has cirrhosis, or look up a picture of a fatty liver disease. And you will see now cirrhosis is an extremely advanced state of liver damage. Cirrhosis is a state where the liver is so chronically stressed for such a long time that the liver begins, more and more parts of it actually become scar tissue.
Well, not just that it's stressed, but that it's actually blocked. Portions of the liver are blocked from nutrients and oxygen over such an extended period of time that scar tissue builds up, and they start to die.
The liver cells start to die.
The cells and portions of the liver start to starve of nutrients and oxygen.
And as the cells die, they convert into scar tissue. Even in that state, parts of the liver, because the liver's function is so important to the body, that the liver will continue to function as long as it can, even if there are sometimes people might get to a state where 2/3 of the liver or 3/4 of the liver is actually dead, and the liver will still continue to do whatever
keep you alive,
functioning. So just to put it in context, that's an extremely advanced state that a little bit of blockage, even though it's not ideal, like the liver will go on. So just to kind of put it in context, if you're kind of like, why am I, like, if I have all these stones and why am I seemingly okay? I mean, you're absolutely right that the liver would be happier if it had fewer stones in it. I kind of, as you were speaking, Dad, I kind of thought about a river, a river that has, stones in it. Pretty much all rivers have stones in it. I'm not trying to say that the liver should have stones, but obviously liquid can flow around things. Now, you get to a place you can imagine where if there are so many stones that the more and more stones there are, the more impeded the flow could be, and the slower the flow might be.
Maybe it's like less a river and more of like a water going through a tunnel,
that's a better analogy.
What are those called? Where there's like,
if you imagine it, like, I'll say a water pipe. I mean, probably this is, a lot of people will have situations where they get roots from trees that start to grow into their drainage pipes. Now, for some time, like, the water will continue to flow, but eventually, if you get more and more and more and more clogged, some water is going through, but it's not really flowing the way it should. And that's maybe more like what the liver could be like if it has a lot of stones. But
yeah, you're putting stones into the ceramic pipe that's piping the water.
Yeah,
kind of filling up with stones.
They're imperfect analogies, but I had a chance, I mentioned this in a previous call, but I had a chance earlier this year to we helped process and butcher a deer, and I had a chance to cut up a deer liver, actually. Now, it was, if you think about the average deer, they probably don't really live very many years. So it was probably a relatively young deer. So it was probably the liver was, not more than a few years old. But a liver is much bigger than we think. So our liver is actually quite a large organ. I was surprised, like, the deer liver it's big. It's quite big. And, of course, a deer is larger than we are, but I would guess that our liver is bigger than we think of it as being.
But then, like, also really important to note is that the liver is so adaptable and so regenerative that as it builds up clogging and as stones accumulate, the liver actually gets bigger and takes up more space. So that's also something that has been kind of revelatory for me, is to just understand that it's actually not a set size necessarily. It actually can grow to take over more space of the abdomen, which is part of the reason why people feel, pain or pressure in different places, or like there's not as much room for certain things. The diaphragm is not moving as well as it could be. The kidneys are squished a bit. Like there's a lot of the human body is quite adaptable, flexible, malleable in there, and unfortunately, as you get closer to fatty liver disease, basically as things accumulate in the liver, it actually does get larger in the body.
Yeah, and that's worth noting that a liver, unlike a drainage pipe, is made of flesh. So it's soft, it's flexible. So as it gets more clogged, it's going to stretch and it's going to grow. So that is another way of also understanding how blocked a liver can be. And if you do have a chance to look at, say, like a picture of a fatty liver disease, you will see that basically it looks like it's like made of nodules. Like the liver starts to look like the whole thing looks bumpy. Our understanding is that that's actually an extremely advanced state of the liver being essentially completely full of stones. So cirrhosis is sort of a more advanced step where it's actually the liver tissue is starting to die. Mm-hmm. But fatty liver, that the look it has, you will see that it looks almost like the liver is extremely full of blobs. And even though
like this,
that's a picture that's a picture.
Okay, I'm just gonna.
This is like a picture of what I've seen and what I was thinking of. So Siena's going to share her screen for a minute. Now, of course, liver flushing is kind of an alternative health approach. So if you want to talk to your doctor about this, they may or may not agree. But then again, it's a common practice for gallbladders to be removed, for example, it's a common practice to just surgically remove parts of the body when they appear to not be fully functioning. So I'm not necessarily sure that I would, fully say that mainstream medicine has the best approach to these things. But yeah, you can see, did you get the picture up, Siena?
It was up.
Oh, you saw that? So yeah. You see how it looks like it's completely full. And somehow it's still, things are squeezing through there, but you can almost imagine that if you like a water filter that probably should have been changed, it's supposed to be changed every year, but it hasn't been changed in 25 years. It's like water's still going to come through there, but it's not going to be coming through well. And in this case, that we're talking about blood. So
yeah, and we're actually not just talking about blood, because there's the liver's filtering the blood. The liver is also producing a lot of things, and in order to do all of its operations, it's like has a chemical factory going on all the time, day and night, doing tons of things. It needs to be receiving nutrients, so it's like it needs to be flooding over with nutrients and oxygen, and then it's giving back bile, clean blood, all the hormones that it's been working on, and all the other variety of things. But I wanted to get back to Bob too, like about the heart. So like, it's kind of, we could say, oh, maybe the heart's working harder or something, but why exactly is that? It's because basically as the liver's functionality goes down, it's still trying to filter the blood and it's trying to keep up with that work, but basically as its capacity goes down, the blood may be kind of like B rate filtered, and then C rate filtered. As your filter is getting more and more clogged, it's like not only is it filtering slower, right? So you're getting like less volume.
And you're getting more blood, you're getting higher blood pressure and more strain on the heart, because the liver is not an active filter. It's actually the heart, the force of the heart draws blood through the liver. So if you can imagine, if the liver's more clogged, the heart's going to have to work harder to draw against that pressure. And then you're going to have different situation in terms of the body's overall blood pressure, and the heart is going to have to work harder. And in general, like Siena's saying, the blood that does come through may not be filtered as well, which is more likely that then the blood will be thick, which then again like compounds the problem of the strain.
Yeah, I was gonna say the blood is like both more toxic and more thick, both more toxic and more thick and less clean. And that is going to be generally harder to pump around the body and also be less ideal for feeding the rest of the body. You know, feeding it clean blood environment and nutrition. Hi, Siena Songbird here. Thanks for tuning in for that little sample clip from our community live coaching calls with the Liberate Your Liver program. If you want to join the movement and get involved with this frontline exploration and research on how essential our liver is to our whole body's survival, you can check out the links. You can join the free Facebook group. You can join the Telegram group. Apply to come in and join our program and get that live support and community involvement, and get to know what you can do to take back your health and reclaim your true vitality, which is totally possible for you. Thanks.